You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director Aharon Keshales. And we're going to be talking about really this wonderful new movie that he has called South of Heaven that stars Jason Sudeikis, who is the man of the hour, and Evangeline Lilly. Welcome to the show, Aharon. Nice to have you here.
Hi, Jan. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I loved this movie. I really did. It was so different, and it's obviously a very different role for Jason Sudeikis. As I said, he is the man of the hour right now. He's winning accolades all over the place for Ted Lasso. But this role is entirely different for him and against character. So, and he's wonderful in it. Absolutely wonderful in it. Tell me a little bit. Well, let's tell the audience a little bit about the synopsis of this movie so they know what we're talking about.
I don't want to tell a lot because it's a lot of twists and turns, but it will do it very short. It's about a guy called Jimmy Ray, serves 12 years in prison, and he wants to get out because his fiance has one more year to live. She's diagnosed with lung cancer, and he wants to give her the best year of her life. And when he comes out with the best of his intentions, things are starting to go wrong for him. And I really don't want to spoil anything more by saying what's going to happen.
No, we don't want to ruin anything at all, because there are lots of twists and turns in this film. And it's, as I said, a very different film. I loved the whole concept of it. Let's talk about how you are also one of the writers on this film, as well as the director. And I thought the backstory of how this, how you decided to create this as a screenplay, I thought was very interesting. So you want to tell our audience a little bit about where the idea germinated from when you decided to write this?
Yeah, well, it was during my honeymoon, which is like how dark do you go once you're on a honeymoon, right? But really? Yeah, I was married at a very late age of 37. She was 39. I was a secret admirer of her. She was a news anchor lady, and I was 18. She was 20. She was already working on TV, and I was, I said to my father, I'm gonna marry her one day. Of course, it was a joke, but 20 years later, I had the premiere of Big Bad Wolves, so I invited her as a VIP guest to that show, and then the day later, I said, would you like to have some coffee? And we got engaged very fast after 3 months and got married after 6 months from the day we first met.
Wow.
And I think that once you lose 20 years of each other, like I didn't know her in her 20s or 25 or 28 or 32, you try to compensate for those 20 years that you didn't do stuff with her, right? You didn't watch the movies you loved with her. You weren't visiting the cities of the world you could visit with her. So we tried to do all very fast during our honeymoon. We went on a half a year honeymoon around the world. So long, right? Amazing and great.
Yeah.
And during that great honeymoon, I said I wanted to write a movie about a guy who loses 12 years he could have been with his fiance, but then when he gets out, she has only 1 year to live, and that will be a movie that is obsessed with time and death and romance, and with a guy who tries to compensate for everything he stole, but by not seeing the present and what is in front of his eyes, he's losing even more. And that's how it came to be.
Just truly, I love the story, the whole story. Your story about meeting your wife and knowing when you saw her that you wanted to marry her. I love that. And yeah, that's what's so interesting about this movie, because I have not seen a film quite like this before. With this kind of, and you're right, it is about a race against time, and then all the things that go on. It's such, and you're going to have to tell me Mike Colter.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Just wonderful. I love him. When people, now his name is not as familiar to me, but when you see him on the screen, you go, oh yes, I've seen him in a number of different things. And even his, nobody, what I loved about this, it didn't go into caricature. Everybody was real. And his character could have gone a couple of different ways. And yet there's humanity, with him, even though he's not the nicest man on the planet. But there's a humanity. And that's what I loved about this film, because there's a lot of humanity in the film. So you really are rooting for everyone actually in the movie. So how did you attract Jason Sudeikis? Because as I said, this is not a role that you would ever think about him being in or playing this character. So how did you attract him to this wonderful, wonderful script?
I always like to cast against character. I did it in my first Israeli movies also. I one of the greatest comedians in Israel is like our local Steve Martin. I gave him the role of avenging grandfather who holds a blowtorch, and that was a big thing here in Israel. So when I think about what I can do, I always think about the less obvious choices, right? Because when you make an action film, the first name on the list will be the Jerry Butlers and Jason Statham's of the world, or the Keanu Reeves, which, you could have them in the movie and it could be a great movie. But I always feel that you'll get a similar thing out of all of them, because they know how to do it almost automatically from their sleep. But when you cast somebody against character, there's magic to it, and something surprising could happen. And when you cast a comedian, usually you get something even greater, because comedians are known for the best timing as actors, and they also almost all of them have sadness within them that makes them funny. And I know that for myself. I like to write a lot of comedy, but I have sadness. Even if I'm happy, like I know sadness, and I tap into those darker places in me when I write. And with Jason, I saw there's like a down-to-earth quality to him, and that was before I saw Ted Lasso. There's down-to-earth quality to him. He's like this every man's man, and everybody loves him. And I knew that my protagonist will have to go through this emotional roller coaster and do violent things at times, and very brutal things even by the end of the movie. And I didn't want the viewer to lose touch with him or empathy towards him. And that's how I thought I should cast a guy like Jason Sudeikis, an actor like Jason Sudeikis, into this movie. The other reason was I watched an indie film called Colossal with him and Anne Hathaway, and that's a great film. And he plays. You could see that he's starting to look for those darker moments in characters. But then I haven't seen him do something like Colossal again. So we sent the script to Jason, and he was looking at the same time for scripts that will enable him to broaden, I guess, his tremendous dramatic chops. And it was lucky, because it was just before he went to make Ted Lasso. He was looking for something different and crazy and in the indie scene, and that script got to him, and we met, and he had great conversation, great meetings, loved the script, and we went on a ride. And by the time I finished the movie, he became America's sweetheart. He's Ted Lasso now. And I think when you see this movie now, when you have Ted Lasso persona in your mind, it's even sadder and more gut-wrenching and more and crazier. So good timing, I guess.
Oh, perfect timing. I mean, it is. It's just it's an amazing juxtaposition to Ted Lasso, which I just love that show. Like everybody else, we all love Ted Lasso. And so I take it that you filmed this before the pandemic, then.
I finished the shooting. I finished the shooting, filming of the film. A couple of days before the lockdown began. I landed to edit the movie in New York a day before the total lockdown of New York area. And I needed to stay there for the entire editing process with my wife, luckily, because I wouldn't survive it without her. But she came on the day. She came 1 day after me. On the day they locked it down, and that's it. No traveling, no moving, no.
Amazing. And then there you were, both of you together during the lockdown, and all, and what you needed to do is edit the film, which you need to be kind of locked down to do that. So it was kind of perfect
Yeah,
timing. God
look,
was watching over this film, Aaron. He was
it the
guiding
behind
it.
of the behind of yeah the behind the scene of this movie is crazy, like all movies that were created during COVID, because I edited I was sitting in my living room with a big TV, and my editor was sitting in a different apartment with his editing computer, and we were talking. I had headphones, and I was like, we're talking and editing right now together. And I was like, the first week I was like, that's not gonna work. It's crazy how people can. But then you get it. It could happen, and it was a really quite a ride. Like another movie could be done on the movies that were made during COVID, like a horror movie, right?
I think so. I think we'll have a bunch of COVID movies that we'll be seeing. That, well, I think some of them are already starting to come out a little bit, but yeah, films that were created during COVID. But has that changed the way you would edit in the future? Because I know a lot of these things that we all went through during COVID, some of them have resulted in positive changes in how we do things. Will this change how you edit in the future going forward, or anything about making the film at all that you might change going forward?
I love human beings and I love people, so it's hard for me not to be in the same space. You see it in the way I write. I like people. I like talking with people and knowing people. It's one of my favorite pastimes. But I will say that about editing and everything you do during COVID, it sharpens the shifts. Like you become more focused because all the small talks are gone, right? Because when you work in the same room with a guy who edits your movie, half of it will be talking bullshit, right? Talking, you just talk about everything, like women, relationships, everything, and then you edit for like 2 hours or 3 hours, and then you eat for another hour. That's how you work. But
Right.
once you do it with headphones, and you don't want those headphones to be a long time on your head, your shifts become so precise that you do in 3 hours, you do more than you will do in an 8 hours shift with the editor when you're sitting with him in the room and just talking and gossiping and stuff like that. So yeah, I have to say I would not change it in the world, the human experience, but I can say it could be done. And sometimes there are advantages of being concentrated on just the work. But I really want the world to go back to what it was, and to people to be able to hug each other and just be together in the same room. I think
Right.
there's nothing that can replace that feeling.
I know. I think we all miss hugging. I think that was the one thing that came out for everyone, was like, I miss hugging people. That's,
I do.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger
Me
too.
too.
I'd rather hug than shake hands. So I didn't like to shake hands before COVID. So now I have a good excuse not to. I'd rather hug. I don't know. It's just one of those things. So where did you film this? Where was this movie made?
In Texas,
In Texas.
in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, and the surrounding of Dallas. We went to Ennis and Glen Rose and a lot of places that we needed to drive an hour or sometimes an hour and a half from Dallas to get to. Yeah, but it's a Texas story. It's a Texan story. It's a Texan tale. So it was perfect going there and seeing real stuff and looking for shabby. Because most of the bowling, I didn't know that, because we were looking like for example, for a good bowling alley that will look a little bit shabby and outdated. But everything today is so beautiful. Everything is like hipster bowling alleys throughout Texas, even. So we took us time to find those that bowling alley in Ennis that will look something that is a little bit wrecked down and shabby, that gives you a real feeling to it.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That's interesting. That's interesting. So what was it like directing Jason?
It's crazy. It was great. He's in this movie. I have to say, when we started working on shooting it, he came to me and he said, "Look, I'm not. I want to be different in this movie. I wanna. I don't wanna. I'm not going to be the clown. I'm not going to be the prankster. I'm not going to be the guy. I need to go all the way Jimmy Ray in this movie." So I'm not saying he tried to do method acting, but he did want it to be walking in this, in the boots of Jimmy Ray, Jimmy Ray through the entire process. So it was interesting to see how, when we talked about the comedy that we have in this film, he said, I don't want to do broad comedy, and I don't want to work in this film with a wink in my eye like I do
We're
most
having
of my.
some trouble with your sound, Aaron. Your sound,
Can you
something
hear
going on
me?
with your sound. Yeah, we can hear you.
Still weird?
Some audio problem here, but anyway, we'll try it. It's I don't know what I'm getting a notice about it, but anyhow, keep talking. It was getting warbly, but keep talking.
Okay, so Jason said he didn't want it to come. He didn't want the comedy to do broad comedy, and he didn't want to be like playing the role with a wink in the eye, so people will know he's in on the joke. So it was like it was we knew a conscious decision to have him do everything dramatically, and the only person that will be laughing will be the audience. So everything was directed as if it's over, it goes over the heads of the characters, above the heads of the characters. They're not in on the jokes, and it was a blessing to have Jason, because he has such a great chemistry with everybody that works with him, and I think you could see the way he and Evangeline are almost look as a natural couple in this movie, and I think that was the blessing every director look for when he works on a movie with a romantic theme, that his leading stars will practically look like they're falling in love with each other again on the screen.
Evangeline Lilly, she's unrecognizable in this film. Let's talk a little bit about that, since you brought it up about their chemistry, because they do have great chemistry in this. Because she's wonderful in this, and they are great together. So talk a little bit about her casting, how you ended up casting her in this role, and how she transformed herself in this movie, because she, as I said, she's unrecognizable a little bit.
So, yeah, Evangeline is one of my favorite, female stars. I love her in The Hobbit, The Lost. Everybody, when watching Lost, I don't think there was a person that didn't fall in love with Evangeline Lilly. And I think ever since that day, I wanted to, if you tell me I would be able to work with Evangeline Lilly, I would say, sure, yeah. But I did see something in her, and she sees it in herself too, that she has more that you see on screen, you usually see on screen, because she always, plays the tough girl, like the tough cookie, the girl that could stand there or her own ground against every obstacle. She's in Ant-Man, she's always a warrior princess. But she said to me once she read the script that her favorite movie is Annie Hall. And the reason her favorite movie is Annie Hall is because Diane Keaton gets to do a real feminine a true female character, like she sees a female character, because she said when working, and she told me that as a male director, usually you male directors, you always see us as nurturing mothers or warrior princes, but you do not allow us to have all these personalities in the same movie. Usually you want either that or that. And she said women are more complicated than that. We have all sorts of personalities. We are nurturing, but we could get crazy. We are tough, but we want to cry when we want to cry. We want to laugh when we want to laugh. We want to be fragile when we want to be fragile. And you directors always want us to just do that one thing. And when I read the script, she told me, I saw that you really tapped into that multiple personality a female can have. And the scene she loves most in the movie is the Beach Boys song on the bench when she sings with Jason Sudeikis, and the line she said about dying makes you a little bit bipolar, because she feels that as a woman, as a female entity, she has that kind of energy. That's her true energy as a person. She's ups and downs. She's smiling and crying sometimes at the same time. And she said, this is me. This is how I would have portrayed myself in a movie. This is as close as you could get to how I feel as a female when I watch movies, or even when I, live with my family. And that's how we tapped into that character. We worked a lot on that character. We worked a lot on her, the way we change her hair, and because we wanted her to represent the sun and the light in the movie. So I just wanted to blast her with that, total, beautiful blonde hair that you never seen her before. And we wanted her to be like a beacon of hope in a movie that doesn't have hope. And that's what she portrays in this movie.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. What a wonderful description of her character and of her too as an actress. So beautiful. So yeah, that you obviously know how to write female characters. I'm sure that has a lot to do with your marriage, perhaps. Uh, would you say?
And working and collaborating with a female actress and allowing her to tell you when you're writing a cheesy scene and she asks you to be more sincere and more honest. And that's what you do when you work on I feel with a female character. Just ask for an input from your actress and she will give you a world that you would never imagined as a writer. I learned so much about writing women from Evangeline Lilly in this movie, and I owe it to her.
Wonderful. What a wonderful thing to say. I'm sure she appreciates that very, very much. So you'll have to show her this interview for sure. So
She knows how I feel. She knows.
that you love her.
She knows that. Yeah.
What was the most difficult part of the shoot? How many days did you shoot it, and what was the most difficult part?
The most difficult part is trying to shoot a movie like that in 25 days,
25
which is
days.
less than I have in movies I shot in Israel. So obviously, it's the tough thing to do and to manage during a 25 days of shoot is working between those action scenes that demands more than one day, like the cabin sequence in Mexico. It's something that you need to have like 4 days in order to have so many shots, and compensating with the acting scenes, and then you need to sometimes shoot 12 page of dialogue in one day. So that's the balancing act a director has to have, and the most challenging thing to do as a filmmaker in the indie movie that has all action and drama at the same movie.
Did you have
So,
did you have any
yeah.
difficulties anything in filming it in Texas? Did you have any issues with that at all? Was the weather wise, or were you there during any of the bad weather that has taken place in Texas, unfortunately?
Yeah, because we were supposed to shoot it in LA a couple of weeks before. We decided to move the production to Texas because I think budget-wise it was smarter to do it in Texas, and also the movie takes place in Texas. So we moved it from LA to Texas. Now LA is like constant sunshine, right? So your costume design it's going to be a sweaty Texas noir. There's going to be sun all the time and blue skies, right? And then I called the producer. Are you sure we're gonna have the same weather in Dallas? That we're gonna have Yes, sure, no problem. We have the same weather here. And then I came to Texas. It was December. It was cold, so we were like in coats. I needed to change the entire costume design in order to match it into a wintry, Texas town, so Evangeline won't freeze up with those skirts and not dresses that we made her for the summer shoot. And I needed to refigure the compositions and the way the skies are going to be gray and not blue. But then I thought it's the perfect weather for this kind of movie, because this is a movie about dying. And for me, autumn and winter represent dying better than summer. So it's, sometimes magic happens when spontaneous things happen.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're totally right. I was thinking that when you were saying, I was thinking, well, that's actually perfect for this film, to have it be those gray skies. And you can see that they were cold in some of those scenes that
So
they
cold.
had to do. So tell everyone where we can see this movie. It's a wonderful movie, and I do recommend it. South of Heaven. Where can people find this movie so we can all watch it?
So the movie comes out on October 8th to VOD and theaters in limited release, and it's also going to be in world premiering in Beyond Fest on the 2nd of October. Everybody in LA is invited to the first screening of the movie. I'll be there introducing the movie.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Aharon, it was a pleasure having you on the show, and it's a lovely movie, and I'm looking forward to seeing whatever you do next and having you back on the
Jen, it
show.
was a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
And Talk soon.
Thank you. If you have missed any of the Jan Price shows all about movies, you can go to my website, thejanpriceshow.com, where all the shows are archived, or you can go wherever you like to listen to your favorite podcast. We are on the iHeart Podcast Network, Apple, Google Play, iTunes. Please go to our iTunes channel and subscribe. We're everywhere. Also, you can follow us at The Jan Price Show on Twitter and Instagram. So thank you all for listening.